The world today is characterized by war and massive loss of nature. And in the light of this, we need to discuss how we can better ensure a sustainable future, how we can protect our environment and culture, ensuring that the future generations inherit a world where they can thrive. And then I will say something that David Attenborough have said, and he's a very wise man, almost 100 years old and still working. I'm very proud to have received a letter, handwritten letter from him myself. Nature once determined how we survive. Now we determine how nature survives. And then I will give a short presentation of the participants. Heidi Bjerkan. I had to call my brother, a farmer, about this introduction of Heidi. I knew, or I thought I had heard that he had been, or still is, one of her suppliers. And the answer I received was very short. She is the best chef in Norway. She is dedicated to knowledge, being closely connected to producers and livestock, and cares about people, and having introduced more than 80 young people to her profession. Let me see. And the next, a lot of papers here. James. I really enjoyed listening to you in the morning. From my heart. You are already well introduced, so we will go straight to where are you? Linda?
My daughter is training to be a chef.
Yeah. Yes. You are also well introduced, so we...
Hello, lovely to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And to lead this conversation, we have the political editor in Nasjonen, Anne Ekornholmen.
Yes. Hi. Hello. Nice to meet you. Hi.
The stage is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so this will, of course, happen in English. I hope you're still awake. We are going to talk about... I think our challenge is to try to sum up what we have heard today from you yesterday, for those of you who were at the restaurant yesterday. And I would like to jump right back to UK, actually, James. Starting with you. You started the day today. So we're going back to you. You explained earlier today how modern farming has brought the rural landscape close to collapse, and how industrial agriculture has kind of removed us from the nature, from the soil. Yeah. I don't know if you can try to explain this, but how did that happen? Is it politics? Is it just progress?
So I did use the word progress in the book that I wrote about this called English Pastoral, and I had to put myself in the shoes of my dad and my granddad about why they would do all of those things, which now I would have an issue with. And I think what's really useful is to stop thinking of it as blame or even sin or fault or anything, and just say, what is it that actually happened? Sorry, I should say, thank you for doing this in English. I appreciate everybody doing this in English. So what really happens is, in the late 40s, early 50s, 60s, somebody comes to your farm and is going to sell you this powdered stuff that you put on the crops and it makes them grow better. And because your soil's biologically active and it's not yet degraded, it works incredibly well. And it's really cheap, because they've got loads of it after the Second World War. It was being used for munitions. It looks absolutely like cast iron progress. I think it's hard to be mad at anybody for doing that. And the same with, they'll give you a spray or a chemical which kills the weeds or kills the grasshoppers that are killing your crop or something. All of these things worked miraculously well, and they actually answered questions which humanity had been trying to answer for a very long time, right back to the Bible and beyond. So I don't think we can be too judgmental. It's only later that we see that they all have these long-term deteriorating effects, and that without knowing it, we've entered a process where we're trading away soil carbon, or we're trading away diversity, or we're trading away the nutrient richness of food. All of these things come much later. The miracle unwinds on us.
But this progress also led to, we were made able to, feed more people.
Yeah.
And now we have still hunger in this world.
Yeah.
So how does that sum up?
That's a very big subject. There's a very lively debate now about how we were feeding people before that, and whether that system itself was capable of growth with some changes and some tweaks. There's a very lively debate about, yes, it enabled us to feed everybody, but it becomes slowly less effective when we're spoiling our soils. So even if it does work, it has a time frame of stopping working. So the truth is that almost deserves a full book in itself, answering that question. But if you're asking me, do I believe we can feed the world without those things? I absolutely do now, if that's the answer you're looking for. But we have to be brilliant farmers, and brilliant and thoughtful eaters and cookers and shoppers. And we need local food systems that absolutely close the nutrient cycle. So forgive me for mentioning this, but one of every sustainable human society there's ever been took the nutrients that came out of the rude parts of a human and took them back to the field. The nutrient loop was closed. And we have this idiotic society where we carry nutrients into our houses, we cook them, we eat them, then we lose them from the entire food chain. This makes no sense whatsoever in historic terms. And then we magically have to recreate the nutrients. That isn't how sustainable local food systems work. No. So there are things we need to do to close the loop, to stop needing all of that extra false help.
So we are talking about how to get back to some sort of circular production, where nothing is actually waste.
No.
So this is also how you think about food and how you think about using the soil and the resources.
Yeah, I think everything starts with the soil and the knowledge about the soil. I don't think many people these days have a knowledge about the soil. I mean, it's quite easy to see the difference between a healthy soil and a not healthy. And that's at least gave me like a big inspiration to build soil when I saw the big difference. And it's actually can help us with everything.
Do you also, you talked about that yesterday, about how you make sure nothing is going to waste, that you also can, when you know where the food comes from, you also value it higher. And you don't throw it away, or you use everything.
At least I try.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say I'm perfect. I wish I was, but we try as much as possible. So it's always a new start, and try to get more knowledge together with all those I'm working with, to also tell the value about the animals, show them the animals, show them where they are. Where they go and eat, and what all the healthy things they do for us. Like a cow is, I'm talking about the dairy cows now, so those I'm talking about. So how much they do, good things they do for the soil. And I think that's something always helps chefs to understand the whole circle. I think it's easy to explain with a cow.
So this more traditional kind of way of thinking about food production and using the soil, this is also closely related to our culture and our history.
Very much so.
Yes.
And I think it can be very useful to dare to take a step back and look, how did we do it, and how can we now? Can we try to do this over again? Can we try to combine it with new technology to see if it meets our needs in the way we have them now? And also to think about the effectivity in a new way. Is the way we have thought about efficiency, is it really long lasting, or do we have to reconsider how we do things?
When we talk about to be self-sufficient, the Norwegian government has a goal that we should be much more self-sufficient than we are today. Do you also in the UK talk about this, how the global political situation right now affects this?
So yeah, I think this is a massive issue. I think I understood from earlier that you had a man from the army who was saying, I think we have 6 days. That ought to scare everybody. Like, it scares me. And I think Britain probably would be the same. I think I've mentioned 3 weeks mentioned in Britain, but we've shot ourselves in the foot by leaving the European Union. we now have a much more fragile trading relationship with the rest of the world, and yet we still have a just-in-time supermarket logistical system. And we saw, I don't know if you had the same thing, but in the early days of COVID, we had the first time in my lifetime, and I think in my parents' lifetime, you had shelves empty and systems starting to break down, and people looking at each other going, is this as fragile as it seems to be? Yeah, really, really is. And I don't like conspiracy theories. I don't like scaring people, so I try to be really, really careful about this. But even if things go great for the rest of your life, my life, or our children's lives, they won't go great forever. There's a time when something goes wrong, an earthquake, an epidemic, something really bad goes wrong. And I'm absolutely convinced that when that happens, you need a lot of food within walking distance of where you live. Or you need amazing shoes because you're going to be walking a long way to where the food is. And I think we're fooling ourselves that this is not the case. I don't trust Trump or Putin or China to feed me or my family when it goes wrong. I really don't. And I don't think I can even trust the EU to feed me because we've just done a very foolish thing of breaking our link with them. So I think as a British person, this is a really big deal to me. I'm like, no, okay, we need to work out. Not have to be self-sufficient in bananas or every single product, but what are we doing if this system breaks down? What would we be eating in week 3, week 10, week 30? I think this is how you would think about a food system.
Does that also mean we have to, be more protective? Is that
I think so.
Less global thinking?
I think particularly if we're affluent or we have a slightly different political trajectory to other large trading blocs, I think we probably do have to be more protective about food, is my belief. And to sort of put our policy or our legal arms around our farming system. And I think there's 2 sides to this. Yes, be more protective. And then there's a side that the farmers don't like right now, which is asking an enormous amount of them in terms of what we want them to do. So to not just produce food, but to do it in the best ways in the world with the best animal welfare or the best environmental regulation.
Yes, please.
But also to be more creative and to search back into the knowledge of our forefathers, because the offers of the supermarkets is just so limited and compared to what the nature really can give. So it's if we could use more of what the forests can give, nature has so much to bring. Let's take better use of it.
Anders Nordstad, he said earlier today that when you show the map to a child, even they can say that when we should produce food, it's Norway, it's not Brazil. That's where we should get our food from. You believe in this,
Yeah, I
Heidi?
believe in that as well. Yeah, definitely. I think we should get more knowledge to produce. It's only 7% of us who can produce food. That's quite scary. So at least I try to teach children to grow their food, also harvest, forage their own food. I think that's also lots of things we can do ourselves to, like when I was a kid, we was always out harvesting and picking. And yeah, we had 1 week every autumn for picking potatoes. Yeah. And I think we have the same in Norway still, but I don't think the children picking potatoes these days. They are playing something.
My son actually, he was trying to come up with something to do in the forest. And he said, this Oscar, well, no, he's using the holiday as he should. He's actually picking potatoes.
Yeah, good. Yeah, but I think we have to go back to that again. Yeah.
Yes. One of the things I've learned by coming to Norway several times and talking to farmers here is there is a really big difference between the two countries. So in Britain, almost every acre of Britain is farmed. So if you want nature recovery, biodiversity recovery, you are definitely talking with farmers and for farmers, and farmers have to do something beyond produce food. And I think you have a slightly different emphasis here, and it's a slightly different farmer mentality here, because I think you're talking about between 3 and 7%, I hear different numbers, of your land is farmed. So you're going to have a much bigger wilderness element to whatever you do. You're probably going to have to sweat those agricultural assets a bit harder than we are.
Yeah, definitely.
And also the winter, as you mentioned.
You've got a different winter, you're going to grow. So I think shaping our or at least being prepared in the bad times for our diet, being much more local, much more shaped by our climate is probably a good idea.
But one thing is this political crisis around us with the wars and going on, but there's also the climate crisis.
Yeah.
We know that it will be changes in what we can grow in Norway, what we can grow in England, what we can import from other countries. Yeah. There will be droughts, there will be rain. How do we prepare ourselves for this? I mean, this can also change our menu of what we can eat. Yeah. Heidi?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's only we have to think different how we grow. I'm really inspired of Stephen Barstow. I don't know if anyone knows him. He's like the salad man. He calls himself. He's from UK and he's eating more. He's only plant-based, but I don't believe in that. But he grows everything in Trondheim. Yeah. And he grows everything himself in his garden. And but he is also taking seeds from Japan for growing in his garden. So I think it's more global because the climate change is different, and we can grow different crops in Norway as well.
And just on our small farm, I'm like you, I'm obsessed with soil. I think this is the basis of everything. But if I can get more organic matter into soil, it really is this simple. I'm more drought resistant. My plants are more able to cope with these wild swings and extremes. And actually, the more diversity I have, there's a wonderful project in Germany called the Geno experiment, where they've been studying how diversity works. And basically, diversity is our best insurance policy against volatility and crisis. And so the more diversity of plants, the more diversity of habitats I have on my farm, there's always something. Whatever the weather's doing, there's always something thriving. And there's a place to go graze, there's a place where something's being produced.
But this can also actually change what has used to be Norwegian produce can also change, so that we can begin growing, wine, do other. We will change what is actually called Norwegian. What do you think about? Would that eradicate some of our traditions or history, or?
I mean, we're changing what is the image of Norwegian every day, and it's not necessarily a problem. It's, I think it's the fact that we are devolving or evolving is amazing and wonderful. But I think we also need to remember our past and to bring the history of our past on to further generation, and we have a huge responsibility to take care of that.
How do we have to talk about this? crazy number that you mentioned about the 21 million tourists or people coming to your district.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that looks like in a daily life?
Okay, so some of you that came, I know some of the museum people came in July, I think it was. So in the three big towns, you basically have very, very busy, crowded streets. They're actually crowded in a way that I don't think you see in many places in Norway. I was in Oslo the other day and I was looking around thinking, this is not so crowded. Like, maybe I was just on a quiet street or something. But in those three towns, it is very crowded. It changes what's in the shops. There was a story in our local newspaper that a journalist, clearly journalists are not always busy, but they'd gone looking for, could you buy the staple things you needed in ordinary life? And apparently you couldn't buy underpants in any of the three towns. It was now, those towns are full of shops selling you the kind of climbing gear that you need to go up Everest in.
Okay.
And somebody told me recently that everybody in the Lake Districts, I think the average walk is less than 5 miles, and it's all pretty much at the lake level. But people are wearing kit that is better than anything that Mallory or whatever wore to go to the top of Everest or to the North Pole back in the past. So you end up with these sort of funny economies where people are doing strange consumption patterns rather than perhaps being what local people need. In terms of my farm, it just means there's slightly more traffic on the road and there's a bigger road a couple of miles away from my farm, 3 or 4 miles away. And that's pretty solid with traffic. And in summer, we can sit waiting to get onto that road to go to town for our shopping. And you can sometimes lose 30 or 40 minutes waiting for a gap in the cars. So at which point, or on a Friday when people are changing, we've stopped trying to go to town on a Friday for our shopping because you can lose an hour waiting to get on the roundabout. So and this is in the sparsely populated north of England where there shouldn't be traffic problems. So I'm not complaining. These are not the worst problems humans have to deal with, but it begins to change life.
Of course, for you as inhabitants, but also, of course, it strains the nature or the landscape.
So when we had COVID and nobody came, all of the locals began to admit that they preferred it. Everyone's looking at each other slightly guiltily going, it's better, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the other thing was the nature completely changed. So I remember going, on the day that lockdown ended, about a year before, we bought 2 second-hand kayaks. And on the day that lockdown ended, I said to my kids, let's go. Everyone will be going, but let's just go and get on the lake and do something different. So we went out to some of the islands in the middle of the lake. So we're part of the problem. We're going out to these islands where people have always gone to every day. And in the hour or two before we'd got there, all of the eggs of the birds had been abandoned and were all smashed. And you're like, we haven't been here for 2 years. So the birds are nesting on the islands again. This is what should really be happening. But in our tourist world that we live in, people are going to those islands, including us, every 5 minutes, and the birds have nowhere to nest on the islands. No. You think, oh, wow, you suddenly see the thing that's missing. And there's a lot of talk in the UK about making our national parks wilder, and that's usually meant as a challenge to the farmers, and I understand that. One thing that they never talk about is how you do that in places crawling with people. It's probably a joke that you could make them wilder. They're essentially public parks with people everywhere.
So this is, we don't have that numbers of people, but this is recognizable also for Norway, for how do we preserve nature and also welcome guests. This is a dilemma.
Certainly it is. And so of course we want to welcome every visitor because we want to share our heritage and our history and our beautiful surroundings. But there are also certain limits, and we have to regulate the activity. And I think that a lot of Norwegian communes and also churches has been working a lot with this and seeing what works and what does not work in relation to limit the visitor and still let the visitor have some feeling of excitement and about the site.
And I don't want to hog the conversation, but one of the weirdest things is, I and others where I live have been saying for a long time, how do these lovely people that are coming, that love this place and want to be here, why would you not ask them to pay something towards the maintenance of the place, either because of their car or their accommodation? And the argument is always, you may scare them away. They may not want to pay the money. But I noticed 20 years ago when we went to online bookings, we now, all the bookings are through TripAdvisor or Expedia. Somebody in America is now putting a 10, 15, 20% surcharge or tax on every piece of income in my landscape. No one says a damn thing about it. No. They're literally 20% of the money in my landscape is being soaked out by some Americans sat in Silicon Valley because they have a cool algorithm and a cool website. And those are, to me, those are the really worrying traps where suddenly a big chunk of your income is effectively being stolen by somebody clever. Yeah.
Would you say you have, as a long experience as a restaurateur, do you have mostly Norwegian or foreign customers in your
I think I have a good mix. Of course, after we get the star and more international guests fly in. But we always try to get the guests to stay longer, visit the farms, also get the knowledge about the soil, because I'm really trying to get them to visit our farmers as well, so they can have a bigger view, an experience, of course, and bigger view of what we are doing.
You touched on that, James, that the fact that there is a much larger part of the UK are actually farmland than in Norway. We had 3%, and in Norway we are. It's becoming longer and longer between each farmer. I mean, we as we are no longer neighbors of a farm. That affects our knowledge about using the soil, producing food. How can we, I don't know, connect back on that knowledge?
Well, I think the answer is partly what you do, isn't it?
I think still we try to also get more farmers to make the farmer job so attractive, so more people will be farmers. Because it's a lack of knowledge with our guest who's coming. They can ask me, how often do you have to milk your cow? Once a week or once a day, or I mean, it's a really lack of knowledge from grown-up people. You can understand from kids. That's but the kids is more have more knowledge about farming than grown-up. That's
So we just changed government in the UK, and I've been lucky enough to meet some of the people making the key decisions about agriculture and farming. They're even sort of fans, like they read my books and I'll meet them and they'll go, we're into what you're into. And I'm like, that's very flattering. But are you actually going to do anything? Like, are you going to do the things that's needed? Are you going to spend the money where it needs to? Like, I don't need you to tell me that you like me. That's very nice, but that's not really what I'm doing this for. And what I'm noticing is, even people that say they care about these things, they mean they care in a slightly wishy-washy way, which means it's actually like number 12 or 13 on their list of priorities. So even when we've theoretically got a better government that would be more liberal and progressive, when there's no money, they're focusing on the 3 or 4 top things, and all you're getting is nice words for the 13th thing on the list, which is farming and food. So I think there's a real culture challenge for all of us that are involved in culture, education, food, to just get this up the list. To say to everybody, no, this is really, really important. This is about national security. This is about public health. This is actually one of the top 2 or 3 things, and this can unlock so many other things about our society.
I believe, because I work in a newspaper that writes about this, I believe that this has become a bigger part of the conversation. I think it's higher up on the agenda for a lot of us.
Good.
Because of the national or international crisis, the war, the climate change, and so on. So it becomes more urgent in a way. Do you think that, I still believe that you're right, because I believe many of the Norwegian farmers will say you're right about nice talk, but do something.
Where's the money?
Where's the money? So do you think this is, it's a lack of politics in some of these areas about nature, culture, food, how to actually put this in front of the political agenda?
I think, I think the to take care of and to maintain the farms and the farming and and also both in the modern way we are doing now, but also preferably in a more traditional way, would be so great for a cultural landscape, and also because of a huge part of the listed buildings that we have in Norway today are connected to the historic farms.
Yeah.
So it's both a great way of taking care of our cultural heritage, but also our food culture, and also in regard of being self-sufficient in a crisis.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to ask you a question?
Of course.
So you're if I understood correctly, you're the editor of a newspaper.
Yeah, well, the political editor.
Political
yes.
editor. Why can tomorrow's headline, forgive me, I'm being pushy, why can tomorrow's headline not be, we've got 6 days if anybody messes with us? Yeah, sorry, I'm not really putting this on you
But I
personally.
think that's
Yeah.
something that will work.
It's very good
You know what I
question.
mean?
Yeah.
We've got 6 days. Any smart Russian knows which 3 bridges to take out to cripple our other logistics or our power. Isn't this the biggest thing we should be worrying about, or one of them?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And the man from the Forfattar earlier today, he also mentioned that if there is nobody living there, nobody using the land, nobody farming, it's just a giveaway.
Yeah.
And I mean, and Norway is very narrow, at the most narrow. So the northern part of Norway is actually I know, it's a problem. I
feel like it's going to take a sort of army of us, isn't it? It's going to take the political editor of a newspaper. It's going to take somebody in a great restaurant. It's going to take you. It's going to take me, and all of these people, and an army of other people to just keep hammering away, going, no, you don't understand it. It's actually more important.
This has been blinking red for a while already. So I'm not sure, but I think that means that we are, over time. I think, I suspect we have time for some questions. Isn't that right? Or should we just go home? If there's any waving hands, we will, yes, there's the one. I don't know if there's someone with someone with the mic.
Hello, my name is Tine Blom. I used to work at the Lillehammer College, University, and I'm a pensioner last year. I have got a kick on what can I make out of my garden in the middle of Lillehammer. And I think it's a bit strange that in all this conference there is no mention on gardens, because we have having a garden for thousands of years except the last 50. And we survived very good during the war because people had gardens. And I don't think having a garden is a competition to the farmers. I think it is something making us more aware. And
I agree.
Let's say, to be a pensioner, you don't have to think, oh, how much money can I get of this? But you get so much wonderful vegetables and fruit and berries, and I'm also thinking, I hate competition, but I like smittende entusiasme, contagious enthusiasm. Yeah, and regenerative gardening, of course, and it's possible also to have this cycle. And I mean, I have my neighbors. Once they came, they had some chickens, and they came with some chicken manure. And I had another neighbor who had a son who had a horse farm, who came with that. And then it's coffee shop from the Lillehammer coffee, coffee factory, kind of, yeah. And then comes the ashes from a neighbor. And then it's like the sense that people are relieved that there is something useful for their
waste.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's something supporting the growth of the country, the growing of the country, to have gardens. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's a great point. Yeah. You want to comment?
Just very quickly, so there are a number of farmers and gardeners around the world that I find really inspirational. One who's in Sweden is Richard Perkins. So anybody that doesn't know about this stuff, when people ask me, so some journalists come to me and they say, really, you think your cows and sheep are how to feed the world? And I say, I didn't say that. I said that was a good way to feed people, sheep and cows. If I really want to feed people, I'm going to be doing no-till organic horticulture, which is done with human hands that are very skilled, maybe like the one that you were talking about. And you need tiny amounts of land, but very human-intensive work, and you can feed large communities of people from very small areas of land. Now, it strikes me the less agricultural land you have, like Norway does, the more obvious it would be that you do that. And yes, you can use polytunnels, and yes, you can cheat in all sorts of ways, but if I was thinking about food security in a country that was like Norway, I'd be thinking, how does every town, every village, every suburb have that kind of facility in it? And those can grow amazing amounts of great food, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I also spoke with one of our new woman coming from Ukraine to Norway, and the first question was, where do you grow your potatoes? Why do you have lawns around your houses? So, yeah.
Yes, thank you for a really engaging conversation. I'm wondering a little bit about how four powerful people like yourself can make what you're talking about mainstream. How can we make agroecology mainstream? How can we make regenerative farming mainstream? How can we make caring about the environment mainstream? Because that's really what we need, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyone?
No, I think when we are talking with the military, they are talking about how to, because I think that's something who actually works with the politicians. We have to not import. We can't import. What do you call it? Kunstgjødsel. We can't. Det blir produsert i Norge.
Fertilizer.
Yeah, fertilizer. Yeah. It's we don't need that. Because we can produce all things ourselves. And if you do that, it's a farm who's natural. We don't have to talk about organic. We don't have to talk about regenerative. This is a normal farm. That's how we do it. Because it's, I think it's the most challenging when I'm talking with people. It's if I'm using the organic word, that's you get. It's not possible to feed the world with organic food. And I don't think we should just stop that. And I think try to do it proper and take care of the soil. And I think that's the only thing. Take care of the soil, and we will get healthy food.
I believe the same thing. So whenever I talk to farmers, I don't tell them to be regenerative. I don't tell them to be organic. I just say, here's some cool tricks. Like, you don't need to buy that stuff, which is making you broke. Or there's other ways. Like, let me tell you, there's another way to do this thing. And I find them more open than you'd expect, really. Whereas if you go at them with some big label or agenda, they struggle. I did chuckle a little bit when you asked your question, because I've probably spent the last 15 years thinking about nothing else. How do you persuade everyone to care about this stuff we all care about? And to be honest, I only really know a couple of ways. And they're small ways. I'm not suggesting they change the world, but like I social media the hell out of this. And I've this sounds like bragging, but they told me recently I'd sold 1.2 million books. I'm like, okay, that's a bit mainstream.
Yeah.
I'm trying my best. Sorry, that was a shameless brag, but it was to reinforce the point that we can. This isn't niche. This isn't niche.
Yeah, but no reason to use the jantelov on this one.
No.
So I'm sorry if I've overlooked some, but here you are with probably coming to close us up.
Thank you so much, all of you, for a very engaging conversation within today's comprehensive and complex topics. and thank you for sharing your knowledge and insights. We have given some of you the guide, but some of you haven't got it, and also you participated yesterday. So for you who are still Catherine Kinn or Anette Svastuen here? Okay, they will get it later. Please.
Tusen takk.
Tusen takk skal du ha.